Hi folks, welcome to the second part of our video series for Chapter 3, where we are looking at the behavioral framework for compensation. In this section, we're going to look at understanding the three key behaviors that employees look for, which is understanding membership, task, and citizenship behavior, and we're also going to discuss the behavioral implications for designing effective reward systems. So you'll see this information that's presented to us from Statistics Canada, and if you recall back to Cook Foods and in the previous chapter, they're the ones who gutted chickens for a living. Well, why would anyone want to pull chicken guts for a living? Well, in fact, why would a person want to engage in paid employment at all? Not everybody does. Of the potential Canadian labor force, which is defined as persons aged 18 years of age and older, just under 62% are currently engaged in employment, either with an employer or self-employment, according to StatsCan, and about 7% of the potential labor force isn't employed, but they're looking for work. We also see that around 31% of the potential labor force are choosing not to seek paid employment, and those are comprised mostly of students who are going back to school, maybe single parents, spouses who stay at home to raise families and handle other family responsibilities, and retirees. But overall, the proportion of adults not choosing employment has been declining steadily over the past 50 years, and that's primarily due to the fact that women are entering the labor force during the 1960s and 70s, and they continue to do so at a higher rate than males do. So it kind of begs the question, when we look at this 62%, that's kind of our focus here for our course. Why do people even work? Why is that important? Well, it's important for people to work because they want to fulfill needs that employment can satisfy. You can buy things that perhaps you want, provide you with an outlet for social activity, those kinds of things. So that's one reason why people work. But people want to feel, to some extent, shall we say, self-actualized. They want to strut their stuff, show what abilities they have. And if people are able and willing to do the jobs that companies have, that's another reason that they will join a company. They just want to belong and do things that are going to help further the cause of a company and help them realize their talents. So those are two of the main reasons why people continue to work. So if we look at what are some of the causes of membership behavior, first of all, what factors determine whether somebody stays with an employer long term? Mostly research shows us that mostly it's your level of satisfaction with a job and whether or not you can identify with the organization. And you'll recall from our earlier discussion, we talked about organizational identification as us having a sense of shared goals and values with that of the company, having a sense of membership or belongingness to that company, so you think it's the right fit for you and the job is the right fit for you, and an intention to remain with that company for a long time to come. So that's how we had defined organizational identification earlier. That's one of the causes of membership behavior. So you really want to belong to that organization. You understand its purpose, its values, and you support those values. The other thing that wants us, why people feel the need to belong to an organization, a particular organization, is the level of job satisfaction they get from being a member of that organization. So when we look at job satisfaction, we're not just speaking about how happy you are with the job, because there are several elements that go into determining the level of satisfaction or happiness that people have with their job. They should be satisfied with pay, so that means their economic rewards are seen by the employee to be as fair, and that would cause them to want to be a member of the organization. They have satisfaction with promotion, so they believe that advancement opportunities are available and are possible for them to achieve. Job satisfaction is also defined by people having satisfaction with supervisors, which means they feel that their bosses are fair, consistent, helpful, and they treat employees well. They also are satisfied with their coworkers. Perhaps they view their coworkers as friendly, sociable, and very supportive. And also, one of the other elements of job satisfaction would be satisfaction with the job itself, because you love the duties of the job. They speak to you. It taps your preferences and abilities, and it challenges you. So those little elements which comprise job satisfaction, as well as your ability to identify with the organization, increase the attitude in a positive way that you have for your job, and that causes people to want to be a member of an organization. Now, the other thing that constitutes or creates membership behavior is your level of what we call organizational commitment. And there's two types of commitment that we talk about. We talk about affective commitment, where somebody's attachment or wanting to belong or to be a member of an organization is based on the fact that they just feel positive about the company. So maybe they have, again, high levels of job satisfaction and a high level of organizational identification. Another level of commitment is continuance commitment, meaning the attachment to the company is based on a perceived lack of better alternatives. What we mean here is that somebody, in some instances, I sometimes refer to these people as those who have quit and yet stayed with a company. So they may not be putting forward their best efforts, but they don't have any better alternatives available to them, maybe given their skill levels, their education levels, whatever. So they're staying with the organization because they know there are no other serious alternatives for them to consider. Sometimes that happens too, and people are very well paid by a company, and they know that if they were to leave with the level of skill and ability they have, they wouldn't command that salary and those opportunities. So sometimes people, as I say, quit and stay. All right. Now, there really isn't a relationship that research has shown between continuance commitment and effective commitment. So there is no relationship that we know of yet, and there doesn't seem to be a relationship between continuance commitment and job satisfaction. But clearly, there is a relationship between effective commitment and job satisfaction, because I would submit job satisfaction is one of the components that contributes to people feeling effective commitment, wanting to stay with a company. All right. So that's another cause of membership behavior. Now, we're going to look here in this next series of slides at trying to understand task behavior a little bit better. So what keeps people's commitment to task, the things they do as part of their job description on a day-to-day basis, whatever their job is on day-to-day, special projects that they engage in, whatever they do in the job. What is it that keeps people focused and wanting to do those particular tasks? Well, to understand a little bit more about task behavior, we have to start talking about different theories of motivation. So we're going to divide this section on motivation into two pieces. We're going to look at content theories, which help us to understand motivation by understanding and identifying some of the human needs. So what are some of the basic human needs that people have, and how does that impact their motivation? Then we're going to look at how people choose to react to fulfill those motivations, and that is studied when we look at different process theories of motivation. So we're going to focus on understanding motivation by determining the process that people go through when they make choices as to how they're going to react, what certain actions they're going to take to fulfill those human needs. Okay, so let's begin with the content theories. There's three basic ones we're going to talk about in our course. We're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're going to talk about job characteristics theory of Oldham. Oldham is a researcher. And we're also going to look at Herzberg's two-factor theory. But first we'll talk about Maslow's hierarchy. Basically, with the hierarchy, Maslow, he was a social psychologist, and what he maintained through a lot of his research is that people have 5 sets or 5 levels of needs, which he arranged in a hierarchy, from the lowest level of need to the highest level of basic human need. So he would say most people first and foremost want to satisfy their survival or physiological needs. That would be the need for food and for shelter. The next highest level of need that they'd like to satisfy are safety and security needs. So say, for example, maybe having steady employment so that they can amass some wealth and maintain a particular standard of living to which they aspire or to which they have, right? So those are meeting your safety and security needs. And an example of doing that is maybe through steady employment. Then people also have, at the next highest level of needs to be met, social needs. So within an organization, they may participate in activities, maybe fundraising activities, social activities for employees, just like to work as part of a team because it gets them interacting and sharing thoughts with others. So there's a need for social interaction within an organization, which satisfies people's social needs. Then we get to the next highest level of needs, which are esteem needs. And Maslow says that people want to satisfy or look to organizations to help them satisfy their esteem needs, which are things like, say, for example, a need for achievement in an organization, meaning that we want to feel like we've achieved something good for the company by doing our jobs and doing it well. We want to be recognized for doing a job well done. And esteem needs also go along with people mastering their job and feeling competent about what they know in their job. So it kind of builds their ego a bit. And then at the highest level of human need, we have self-actualization, which is somebody's need to continually learn, to grow, to develop, and to keep, to some extent, to keep getting challenging work, whether it's through job enrichment, lateral moves in an organization, promotional move, maybe transfers, but people want to keep learning and they want to keep growing. Now, with Maslow's hierarchy, there are different people that have interpreted the hierarchy differently. Some people would say, well, you have to have your lowest level needs met, and then once they're met, safety and security needs are met. Once the two lower levels of needs are met, then people focus on developing social needs. Well, some of the more recent research has showed us that lower level needs, which could be these lower levels here, any level lower than the top level, right? But any lower level needs don't have to be completely satisfied before people trying to satisfy the next level of need. So, for example, your employment may not be steady, but that doesn't mean you don't have a need to affiliate or to collaborate with people in the workplace on work projects. Your employment might not be steady, but you may not necessarily know, even if you're a contract employee or part-time employee, if your contract is going to be renewed, if you're going to be needed as continuing as a part-time and even full-time for that matter. Some people may feel that way, but it doesn't mean that they don't go on to fulfill social needs. So the interpretation of the hierarchy is changing over time. So that's one model that was put forward by Maslow many years ago to sort of explain human motivation and understand why people behave as they do. The next level that we look at, or the next kind of content theory that we look at, is we look at the job characteristics theory. And this is a theory that was developed by Greg Oldham and his fellow researcher Richard Hackman. It is also described in your text. And what they're looking at here is they've attempted to identify specific characteristics or qualities of a job that cause or create intrinsic motivation. All right? So what they would say is that these are the top 5 here. Task identity all the way up to job feedback, okay? They're what they call 5 core job dimensions. And when these dimensions are present, that increases a person's ability to relate to the task and to be motivated intrinsically to carry out that task. So we look first of all at task identity. And what Oldham suggested, along with Hackman, is that people need to see not just one little snippet of the job. They want to be able to see the entire job done from stem to stern. So in other words, people tend to understand and get more internally motivated to do a job when they understand how all the bits and pieces that go into doing the job kind of fit together. So say, for example, you make a particular product along a production line in your organization. You may have one specific job that you do, but people would that goes into the making of that product. But many people would want to say, well, what happens once it leaves me and it goes to the next stage of production? You know, those kinds of things. So what actually happens there? How do they take my work and make it better? So people like to understand the complete cycle of job activities that go into making a product or performing a service. And that's motivating intrinsically to people to know and to be able to complete those segments of the activities that go into making the product. People also want to feel that what they do is important to the company. That also makes the task not just significant, but it also makes it motivating and creates intrinsic motivation by understanding that. Skill variety. People want to be able to use a lot of the skills that they have in order to complete tasks. So they want to be challenged. They want to be they want to use all the different skills that they have in an organization in order to practice them and to add value to the company. People also want autonomy in their jobs. All right. So people are intrinsically motivated by tasks that they do in their job if they have job autonomy, which means that they have some degree of freedom as to how the job is done. And they also get feedback on the job. So they know whether they're doing a good job, maybe not so good a job, and they know how to improve, and they're given support by their managers on how to improve. So jobs that are high in these five dimensions here, all right, means that if they're high in those dimensions, people will enjoy doing the job more and they'll be more intrinsically motivated by the job. Now, there has been a more conscious effort by companies over time to redesign jobs to include higher amounts of the five core dimensions. And sometimes in order to get a stronger feeling of task significance and task and skill variety using your different skills, some companies have embarked on what they call job enrichment. So they may have redesigned jobs to incorporate or allow the employee to use more of the skills and talents that they have to find the work more intrinsically motivating and satisfying to them. Okay. So sometimes some companies do it, and they also realize that when they do enrich jobs, sometimes employees are expected to perform at a higher level, and the compensation system should be adjusted to recognize this. You'll remember that when we talked about LSE galvanizing in Chapter 2, we kind of talked about this as well. The more skill that some of the workers had at LSE galvanizing, when they learned more skills, they would actually be rewarded for learning the skills because they would be paid a salary based on the number of skills that they actually practiced and learned and practiced. So again, that's an example of job enrichment where people are actually being paid. Sometimes companies shy away from job enrichment because they would feel guilty or bad about not paying employees more, especially if they believe employees' expectations would be to be paid more. All right. But some companies would say, hey, I would rather tap all the potential I can in my employees and practice job enrichment, whether I pay them or not. But in any case, job enrichment is seen to be a way that helps to include or to enhance the existence of all five of these job characteristics to make the job more intrinsically motivating. Now, the last content theory we're going to talk about, actually, I've just decided to talk about it here in this figure, and it's Herzberg's two-factor theory. So if you can just kind of ignore these first two and the last one for a minute, probably now that I pointed it out, you won't ignore them. But anyway, I want to talk about the two-factor theory. Herzberg's also a social psychologist who looked at certain aspects of jobs, and he said people are attracted to do jobs that they find motivating. And if we increase the existence of things in a job that people find motivating, they will be more satisfied with their job and more motivated to do the job. So we need to know what it is about jobs and what it is about work that people find motivating in order to increase their level of motivation to do the tasks within the job. Once we find out what those are, we can provide more of those things, which Herzberg refers to as motivators, things that people love to do in their job. Now, The other thing he identified are hygiene factors. So the more of these hygiene factors that we have in jobs, it doesn't necessarily mean that people's level of motivation is going to increase. In fact, Herzberg found that it didn't. But what he also found is that if you didn't include those hygiene factors, the level of job satisfaction would drop. People's levels of job satisfaction would drop. So hygiene factors are things like, say, for example, companies have policies and procedures, health and safety, things that kind of cater to the lower level of needs, just getting a paycheck. Those kinds of things that cater to the lower level of needs, meeting those levels of needs, and the Maslow's hierarchy. Need for a chain of command, organizational structure, having them don't increase people's levels of motivation to do a job and to do it well. But if you don't have them, if you don't have any formal pay policies, if you were lax with health and safety, those kinds of things that make people feel safe and secure in organizations, then what you find is people's level of job satisfaction decreases and their commitment to task would also decrease. So that's one of the theories that Herzberg brought forward to help us understand task behavior. So now this diagram is interesting because it now starts to link certain managerial strategies with the content theories that we've been speaking of. So high involvement organizations like LSE Galvanizing, where they tap all the potential they possibly can of their employees, they like to give employees jobs where they're given the opportunity to meet their esteem and self-actualization needs. They want to find out, in those companies, supervisors want to find out what motivates people to do a job and to do it well and stay committed to task, and those are the kinds of things we want to provide. We want to make sure that if we want to create a high involvement organization, we need to include, through Oldham's job characteristics theory, we want to make sure people feel that tasks can be identified with, people can do them, we're giving them proper feedback, all those things that keep people focused and motivated to do the job. With the human relations managerial strategy, don't forget, they're kind of a combination of classical or mostly classical with just maybe a touch of high involvement. But these people want to make sure, managers who practice human relations managerial strategies want to make sure that people are meeting definitely their social needs in an organization, and they're getting job satisfaction, but there may be some elements of the job that they want to make sure are somewhat motivating, but they want to make sure, because they understand that their people are still focusing more on hygiene factors, that they never give up on giving those hygiene factors. And certainly classical organizations where it's more people don't think, they just do. Management does the thinking, people are just the muscle and the horsepower behind getting things done. They're going to focus more on meeting safety and security needs, all right, of employees, as well as physiological needs, and they focus more on providing hygiene factors. And if you think about it, even unions were born out of classical managerial styles, right? And they provide hygiene factors. And unions more so since in the beginning, but even now focus on meeting safety, security, and physiological needs of employees. So again, you'll find those kinds of organizations which are largely unionized focusing more on meeting hygiene factors. So that's kind of how the managerial strategies relates to some of the content theories of motivation. Now, I know at the beginning of the video series I told you that we were going to have 2 videos. I'm going to split it up, but I want to see maybe if we could just split it up into 3 videos. Just to kind of shorten the time that you're spending online actually listening to videos, but I want to make sure that you get all the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this last content theory, which is need salience, in the next video, and then after that we're going to review some of the process theories of motivation. So we'll get back to the slide in the 3rd video.